What would you do if one day something as simple as telling the time suddenly didn't make sense anymore? That's exactly what happened to today's guest. A strange cognitive change led to medical testing, which ultimately revealed a brain tumor that changed everything about his life, identity, and future. Today's guest is a writer and survivor, Barry Maher, and this is a story about what happens when your mind becomes the warning sign and your life has to be rebuilt from the inside out. Welcome back to Shit Creek Survivors. We share real stories of people getting stuck up Shit Creek, the paddles they use to get out, and hope for anyone stuck up their own Shit Creek right now. In this episode, we explored not just survival, but transformation, meaning, and how storytelling can become a path back to yourself after everything changes. Let's get into it. All right, Barry, thank you so much for being here with us. If you would introduce yourself to our audience and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself prior to your Shit Creek.
Okay, well, let's see. I am a product of 4 years at the University of Notre Dame. It took me 5.
All right.
An hour and a half at the graduate journalism program at UC Berkeley, and 5 totally befuddled weeks at the Whopper College of the Burger King Corporation. I started out basically as a freelance journalist.
Okay.
And my stuff was in maybe 100 different publications.
Mhm.
And in order to keep eating, I probably had about that many different part-time jobs.
Okay.
At one point, I moved to the beach. I didn't move to a house on the beach. I moved onto the beach with the sand and the seagulls. I wasn't doing real well at all financially.
Got it.
And I started telling my stories to audiences, that is. More important, I started telling my stories to audiences and charging. That made all the difference. I was talking to major corporations, large associations, cruise lines. Nobody asked for their money back. Very strange. And that took me all over the country, all over the world, got me on the Today Show, CNN, CNBC, CBS, in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, about anything you can think of, including Funeral Services Insider. Got me my
Whoa.
syndicated column. Also, after all that bragging, I should mention that I've also been incarcerated twice.
Okay.
Yeah, once for not making a left-hand turn out of a left-hand turn lane, once for aiding and abetting a loiterer. So I am very, very repentant about this, particularly about Burger King's Whopper College. Anyway, that's why I started. I built the world life built a very good career for me, speaking all over the world. Although at one point thought I was doing pretty well. I was getting a little bit up there, but I was really busy. And I was speaking on an Asian cruise. And at one point I wanted to see how much time I had left in the session. And I snuck a peek over at the clock and I couldn't figure out what the hands of the clock meant. Now, this is a little bit weird because I've been telling time pretty good since about 3rd grade.
Right.
And I remembered that, the whole cruise I've been having trouble dealing with foreign currency, which was unlike me because I've traveled a lot and I'm used to dealing with various currency. Then I went to Vietnam. Woman there wanted $7 American, $7 US for a baseball cap. I gave her 200s and a 10. It was a nice baseball cap. It wasn't nearly that nice a baseball cap.
Right.
Back home, my wife insisted I go to the doctor. First thing he did is he had me draw a clock face, 10 minutes to 3. Second thing he did, took away my driver's license. Sent me down for an immediate MRI. The nurse there wasn't allowed to comment on the results. Obviously, she can't be giving diagnoses to people. But when I said, where's the closest restroom? She said, I'm sorry, I can't let you go in there alone. This is not what you want to hear from a medical person, right?
Right.
She said, you better talk to your neurosurgeon. I have a neurosurgeon. Neurosurgeon explained that I had a brain tumor the size of a basketball.
Whoa.
Maybe he said baseball. I wasn't tracking real well at that point. But what was really clear was that he wanted to take some sort of a power saw, cut open the side of my skull, and carve out this brain tumor.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, telling time didn't seem nearly that important. I mean, I could always buy a digital watch, it's no big deal. I mean, the guy was competent. I'm sure the guy was very, very skillful. He's one of these guys, had diplomas all over his wall, Harvard this, Stanford this. I'm sure he's a really intelligent guy, but I've been around intelligent people my whole life, and I've seen some of the dumb stuff they've done. I mean, to me, intelligence is highly overrated. I mean,
Mm.
particularly if it wants to carve open your head with a chainsaw, right?
Excited to do
Yeah,
it.
excited. I mean, if you think about it, we were talking about this a second ago, on a scale of everything there is to know in the universe, on a scale of everything there is to understand in the universe, on that kind of a scale, the major difference between like Einstein and Kiko the Wonder Chimp is that Einstein couldn't pick up with bananas with his feet, at least not as far as I know. So anyway, this thing was taking away all the room in my brain. I didn't have much more room for my room in my skull. I had very
Mm,
little room left for my brain. So eventually I relented and I let Chainsaw Charlie, carve into my skull. Now,
yeah.
maybe I had a seizure. We talked about you may have had a seizure point. You definitely had a seizure. They weren't sure if I had a seizure. But
Mhm.
I woke up, I had Lady Gaga singing nonstop in my head, same song over and over and over again. And I have a vivid, fully formed, horrific story. It's like a memory of something that I just watched, complete with open crypts, bizarre spells, sudden death, and the Ralph Lauren version of the Manson family. I mean, it's a really, really weird story. Now,
Whoa.
yeah,
So
whoa is exactly how it comes.
you're saying you went in for your surgery, and when you came out of the surgery, suddenly a song that you're not used to hearing was playing in your head, and
Just like I was listening to it, just like it was playing in the room right next to me.
then a story as well came through that you didn't recall from prior to the surgery.
I knew nothing about the story. The story was
Wow.
just there, and it was like a memory of something that I'd experienced that I just watched. So I had all
Whoa.
the details of this story, but I had no idea where it came from. And what I figure it probably had something, maybe I did have a seizure, and it probably had something to do with that. And my brain interpreted it that way. But the
Right.
amazing thing was, I mean, compared to what a lot of people gone through, compared to what you went through, uh, I was extremely lucky. The tumor didn't encroach upon my brain, so I was able
Wow.
to regain the ability to think clearly as I ever could anyway. I could work, I could write, I can tell time like a champ. Uh, Brain cancer's in remission. I'm a very lucky guy. If
Beautiful.
anything, the whole experience, it made me more focused, probably made me a bit more empathetic, maybe a
Mm.
bit wiser, I hope. It made me a better writer.
Yeah.
And above all, it gave me that story, a story that I found was well worth writing. Story that became the book I just wrote, The Great Dick and the Dysfunctional Demon. And I mean, how could I not share that with people? It was like the strangest gift I ever received. Another
Th-
thing, though, is, and I don't talk about this too often, but in the nature of this show, it's probably more important. One of the reasons I wrote that book was not just because I had this, what I considered to be a great story that appeared out of nowhere,
Mm,
is that after having a cancer diagnosis, particularly a brain cancer diagnosis, writing this book was very important to me to prove that there was still life after that diagnosis.
mm,
I could still go on, that there was something going to be happening to me. I wasn't going to be a vegetable, that maybe my intelligence was coming back or had
mm.
come back. I mean, every time I get a good review in this book, and fortunately I've been lucky enough to get a lot of them, it's like a pat on the back. Yeah, you're okay. Your brain's back. You
Yeah.
can function. You can write this book. So it was quite a journey, and if it wasn't for probably having that story, having that book, which is something I focused on right away,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have gotten through it as well. That and, my wife and my brother, I mean, I got out of they released me to the hospital. I had so much medication after a week they released me. They don't let you stay very long nowadays, right?
No.
And I had so much medication that it took my wife, who has a master's in nutrition, and my brother, who had a master's from MIT, to figure out the medication basically so I could take what I needed to take when I took it. And they just kept me in line and made sure I took it every day. There was no way on earth at the state of my mind in those days I could have done it by myself. Uh,
That's so interesting. I actually did the same thing. My wife took over my medicines because I was scared to take all these medicines, and she basically said, "If I put them in a tray, will you take them?" And I said,
I had 3 trays.
yeah. And
Mhm.
I'm like, "Sure." And that still goes on now. Like,
Yeah,
it's so weird, that that can happen, but God bless those people who step up to the plate and help you in those moments because
absolutely.
it really helps,
I don't know how people could have done it. If going through that surgery with that degree of different medication, take this twice a day, take that 3 times a day, take that with lunch, take that with dinner, blah, all that. I mean, it was incredibly complicated. And I
Yeah.
think it was just recovering from not being able to tell time, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Never mind sort out all these medications. No way on earth they could have done it.
Yeah.
One of the other things that happens when when you have people helping you like that, though, is all of a sudden, if you tell people they find out you have a brain tumor, all of a sudden they're addressing everything to the person you're with. It's like it's like you're a
Yeah.
potted plant, "How's he
Yeah.
feeling today?" "Yeah, well, I know, he's feeling okay."
Yeah. Yeah. It's a funny situation. It's an odd situation when you're the one who's really sick. Because, like you said, it's like instead of talking to you, they end up talking to the family, getting like an overall, like getting everyone involved. And yeah, it just becomes weird that yeah, that you're not even representing yourself as much in that moment. And another thing I noticed that a hard part about being a patient is when you're in the hospital for a long period of time, everyone, the doctors, the nurses, your family, the people who love you the most are saying it's going to be okay. But all those people get to go home at the end of the day. You- You're stuck in the hospital in those hours where you're just like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I
Yeah,
can stay here any longer. And everyone keeps coming in after they've come back from going home, refreshed and ready to go that day. You're like, I just need to go home. And they're like,
and
you're
people
going to be
mean
okay.
well,
It's like, how do
of
you
course
know?
they do, but, my thought is always, "Well, how do you know it's gonna be okay?" I know you
Yeah.
don't know what's gonna be okay,
Yeah.
I couldn't tell time, That's
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
look at this, they just cut open the side of my sky. I mean, I had staples all around, I got pictures, it's really gross.
I bet it looks gnarly. Yeah.
Shaved off all my head, not that I had too much to begin with, and they had staples like this, just bam, bam, bam. It was
Wow.
pretty amazing.
Wow.
But the interesting thing, having the story really helped to concentrate on that and to think, "What am I gonna do with this story?" I said, "I'm not gonna speak anymore. I'll speak a little bit, but I'm gonna write this book. I'm gonna write this book."
Hmm.
And then after a day or 2, they allowed me to start walking a little bit
Yeah.
through the ward. And you can't walk far, but you can walk a little bit. But I walked and I passed 2 or 3 rooms, and I walked back, and the people in those 2 or 3 rooms much worse off than I was, right?
Mm.
You know? Next day, I went and walked a little bit further, then maybe what, 4 or 5 rooms. People in those 5 rooms were much further. You see, I developed a little bit of speech impediment during that where they're cutting open my skull.
Well, that's
But
all
the
right.
people in those 5 rooms were, much worse off than I was. Everybody on that floor, in effect, seemed to be much worse off than I was.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, am I gonna let this get me down? Compared to those people. Any one of those people would give their eye teeth to change places with me, which is
For
really weird when you just had your head cut open with a power saw.
I was just about to say that for someone who just had their head opened up, that's you were immediately looking for um I don't know, a point to point the ship at, if you will. You know what I mean? It sounds
Mhm.
like immediately your brain was like shifting to how do we push forward or how do we move or what should we focus on? And it turns out the story that, you basically were downloaded during your procedure ended up being something to focus on that you were able to kind of. Now,
It
without telling us the whole story about the book, can you give us kind of like a short glimpse at what it is for anyone who might want to buy
Yeah,
it?
I'll give you a setup. The story is a supernatural thriller with a rich vein of dark humor, I hope. It certainly is meant to be. One
Gotcha.
of the things I do, I write a syndicated humor column. So this
Cool.
book is a supernatural thriller, but I think there's humor running through the whole thing, and the amazing thing is how funny people find it to be, which, I really like. But
Yeah.
story is 1982. Steve Witowski used to be a hero. Now
Hmm.
he's just a former songwriter, failed songwriter, really, running from the law.
Okay.
And worse, he's just killed a man, almost accidentally saving a woman for what seemed to be the strongest, most bloodthirsty wino in California.
Yeah.
Steve should keep moving. He just killed a man, and he's running from the law. He better keep moving.
Yeah.
But the woman, Victoria, she's beyond stunning. Steve stays, right? And Victoria becomes just a part of a mystery that he can't begin to unravel, even as the face of the man that he just killed slowly, gradually appears in his arm, then slowly, gradually fades away. And what starts out as a gritty murder mystery spirals into what David Moody called a wickedly funny, hot, sweaty, magic and murder-infused roller coaster, complete with open crypts, dark spells, sudden death, and as I mentioned before, the Ralph Lauren version of the Manson family, where nothing is what it seems and where Steve may well be the next victim. And that's the story I woke up with in my head, basically. And the implications of that story and having this guy run through his experience. What had happened was it was 1982, which, if you remember, if those of us who were around back then, was when the dreams of the 60s were dying and the Reagan Revolution was taking over, the greed is good kind of mentality. And this guy was a refugee from the 60s, and he
Mhm.
lost his basic reason to live. He lost his basic philosophy. He was actually a hero during that time. Uh, Graduated from Harvard. He was very successful in that world. That
Mhm.
world fell apart for him, and he couldn't make it as a songwriter, and he ended up as a cigarette salesman. I
Okay.
mean, he'd basically given up all his ideals, and he was awash, and he was looking for where he's going to go next. What can I believe in? Where am I going to go? And I thought that was a story, particularly in that point in my life, that was hugely important for me to work out and for
Yeah.
other people to read. And but I didn't want to make it preachy. And
Uh-huh.
fortunately, the story wasn't at all preachy. The story was just exciting and funny. So hopefully it worked out.
So you were given this story, and it doesn't even sound like a simple story. It sounds like a very complex, multi-layered kind of story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so you were wow. So
And that's
again,
exactly what I said. I probably woke up from surgery and said, wow.
I mean,
I don't say that I did, but it was like, wow, that
it
is a really, because the more I realized and the more I played the story in my head, the more the more profound I thought it was, the situation this guy was in and how he was struggling, trying to find what to believe in, trying to find what's going to keep him alive.
yeah. Yeah, that is profound in that moment.
And the
Wow.
title of the book, the title people always ask about the title of the book. It's called The Great Dick and the Dysfunctional Demon. The Great Dick, if you think about it, The Great Gatsby, which is a
Mm,
story about a tragic love,
yeah.
and Moby Dick, which is a story about a giant whale. If
Mhm.
you think about it, they're kind of the same story, just worked out differently for different eras.
Okay.
Or maybe not. You don't have to
Yeah.
agree with that one.
No, I
But
can see it. Yeah.
yeah, they're both what they are. They're basically totally different, but they're both about someone's desperate attempt to overcome a failure that threatens to define their life. And
Mm.
so if you tell that story for this era, you should call it, if you're thinking The Great Dick and Moby Dick rather than The Great Gatsby, you should call it Moby Gatsby
I
or The
love it.
Great Dick. Yeah. And
Yes.
as far as the dysfunctional demon, you got to read the whole book to find out what that's about.
I appreciate that. You can't give everything away, especially if it's been downloaded from another source. It's almost like you've become like
Really? Somebody's going to
the catalyst. You're the pen
plagiarism on it at some point
in another universe.
in another universe. They
When
took
we
my
get to the
story.
other side, you'll be inundated with all this love, like I talked about when I got to, I shared my little near death experience with you. And it's going to be funny when someone walks up to you and be like, you're doing great, but I got to tell you about this story. You stole that.
Yeah, right.
And you'll be like, I didn't mean to. Why'd you give it to me? That's so neat. And I just love the idea that there's so much going on that we don't understand, we don't see for whatever reason isn't accessible to us. But seems like there's so much going on around us that we just like don't even know about, and it's things that ways you can get a story just put in your head while it's being cut open. Um, I
Yeah,
I I have to ask about the song. Did you ever ask the surgeon, was he playing the song during the procedure?
yeah, he didn't know what I was talking about.
Didn't
Yeah, and again, maybe he thought I was gonna sue him or something because the song stayed with me for about 3 days and then went away, fortunately. I mean, Lady Gaga's a good singer and all, but, I mean, it
Yeah,
was just over and over and over again, the same song, and I'm trying to work out my story. I'm thinking, "Okay, this happened there and that happened there," and Lady Gaga's blaring away in my head.
yeah.
I mean, I thought it might be permanent, that I'd permanently have this song to listen to.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, that would get annoying.
The brain is very, very strange. Who knows what this stuff comes from? If they're banging
Exactly.
around with your brain with the knives and saws and who knows what all they're using in there, who knows what it can generate.
And I've heard other stories. I don't know why this is coming out right now, but I've heard stories of people having like TBIs and then waking up and being able to speak a different language or like
Yeah.
have knowledge about things that they were never around and like skilled knowledge about things. And you're like, huh? Like their IQ
Yeah.
goes up. And you're like, how did that happen?
I know, I was
Why
hoping I
didn't
could
mine
come
go
out and
up?
be able to play the piano or something, do something,
Right. Like
But I
something.
actually am a better writer than I was before. I mean, I wrote a lot of nonfiction and supported my and basically used it to build my speaking business. But I really think I'm a much better writer now. I
Wow.
think I'm a lot more empathetic,
Yeah.
uh, but I'm also a better writer. It's just the words come out better, it flows better. I don't speak as well, which
Hmm.
is interesting. Uh,
Wow.
but
Yeah,
but
that is
on paper,
interesting.
I write better than I ever wrote before.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It could because I was a speaker. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
spoke very well. I was, reasonably articulate. Like people paid me a
yeah.
lot of money to speak to them. And
Like
now
those
I
circuits were used to firing, like you're used to being articulate and the
yeah,
words coming, but now they don't come through verbal words, they come through written word.
yeah,
And
and the written words come a lot better. And I mean, I was always a pretty decent writer. People, my nonfiction was pretty widely translated,
yeah,
pretty successful. But I think it's a much better quality of writing than I have right now. But the
wow.
speaking, the words may or may not come out, and my voice sometimes gets very weird. You know, it.
Yeah.
And I don't walk downstairs nearly as well as I used to. Those are the major side effects that I'm left with. And I've got this great book.
Well, I mean, that sounds amazing. I mean, to get out of it and be able to walk, first off, that's a blessing. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like I have to remind myself of that, and I feel really bad about that sometimes. Is like I might get like upset with something or someone or a situation, and I'm like, what am I doing? You know what I
oh, yeah,
mean? Like there's so much to be grateful for. And I found my life started changing when I started looking at the things that were right instead of looking at the things that were wrong, in my
yeah.
opinion.
And
Then I
that's
realized later on is like, I don't even know what's wrong. I don't even know what's right. You know what I mean? Like I've have a preconceived conception of like what's a good example? I don't know an example to put it on, but lots of times I was going into situations where if you and I were at odds about one particular topic, my job was to prove you wrong compared
mhm,
to listening to where you were coming from so I could get a better understanding of why you see the angle that you do.
right.
You,
And
you
maybe
know,
change your opinion a bit.
yeah,
You
yeah.
damn well better because I'm right.
Yeah. I also like the saying that the smartest person in the room is usually the last person to speak, and I'm like, I got to remember that too. You know what I mean? And
It's a good saying, and it's probably very true. You know?
yeah, because they're listening to everything else that everyone's saying, and then they
Mhm.
get to formulate that last opinion based on all of these, things that have been put in the air already. So that makes a lot of sense, and that's why good managers, good CEOs surround themselves with people who are super smart beyond where they're at, so that they
Right.
get angles that they don't even know exist. Because they've admitted to themselves, I don't know everything. It's impossible for me
Yeah.
to know everything. Unless
Yeah.
you're like an Elon Musk who can basically pick up a rocket and be like, "Oh, I understand how that works." Can we get it to land on its own? And that's kind of interesting. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, you have been through a lot. What would you say potentially to someone who might be stuck in their own shit creek? Actually, no, let me rewind. I have two questions. One is, what is a paddle or what is a suggestion that you would give to a person who might be struggling right now based on what you experienced? Maybe a little gold nugget that you never knew before.
One of the big things for me was to be able to rely on other people. That was very
Mm,
important. It's two things: to be able to rely on other people and to have a purpose for what I was doing.
have a
Writing the
purpose. Yeah.
book, working out that story gave me the purpose.
Yeah.
Being able to rely on other people was very important. And then, as soon as I started relying on other people, I realized that they had their own issues.
Mm.
I had this big thing in my head, I can't tell time, blah, blah, blah. And you tell people you have a brain tumor and everybody gets really, really nice. I really advise, you know, at, but but when you start focusing on these other people, maybe they don't have a brain tumor, but they have issues of their own.
Mhm.
And the more you can focus on other people, the more it puts your own problems into perspective.
Yeah,
I mean, that
I agree.
really is it. When I walking around ward in the hospital changed my life,
Yeah.
probably almost as much as maybe more than getting this story. Just, having gone through that and seeing, "Oh, I went through this terrible thing." I mean, basically, I'd written myself off. When they told
Mm,
me that I couldn't go to the restroom alone, I said, "Well, that's it. This is the end. It's okay. It's been a good run." You know?
yeah,
But then when I got out of went through that whole thing and I walked through that and I saw everybody was worse off than I was, it's like, What the hell are you feeling sorry for yourself for?"
yeah,
Oh, I mean, you've just been through what was actually, in a lot of ways, a positive experience.
yeah,
Now you can tell time, you know,
yeah.
and you got time left. I mean, I was waiting to see if it was if it was cancerous, so that was important. And it did turn out to be cancerous, but it didn't encroach upon the brain. So maybe they got a lot of it out, got most of it out.
Mhm,
I had time left, however much time that might be, gave me a chance to do what I wanted to do, to relate to the people I wanted to spend more time with my wife, which I
mhm,
cherish. I'm
mhm,
not sure she's as thrilled by that as she might be, but,
mhm.
it gives me more life,
Yeah,
and you can do a lot of things with your life. You can be upset that you've got a bad deal, and a lot of people have got a bad deal, or you
mhm,
can make the most of it because it's all you got. You're gonna be
yeah,
just as dead one way or the other. You might as
yeah,
well enjoy the time you got, and that was what walking around that ward gave me.
yeah. And that's a personal inner mental shift. The world actually doesn't change.
The world
What
doesn't change. The world doesn't
you
change.
you just end up realizing, or at least for me, I am in no way the hardest unto person in the world.
Yeah,
Why am I acting every day like I am? Why am I trying to prove almost in a way that I am?
yeah.
Because when you're in a victim state, people come around who try to help you get quiet, you turn away from them, all these kinds of things.
You don't want
It's
help.
like you don't want the help. You're like almost determined to stay where you are till enough people go, I see how much pain you're in. And
Right.
you like need it.
You are the biggest victim. Oh, you're
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then suddenly one day your mind changes. The world doesn't shift. There isn't a big boom of lightning or thunder or anything like that. It's like literally your mind changes.
yeah.
And that's all it's
That's all it is, but that's everything. I
yeah.
mean, that's all it is, but that's everything. When I got after I went home, my brother was there, and we got the phone call, and the doctor called up, and he said, "We did the biopsy, and it's cancerous." And I said, "What kind of cancer is it?" And it's hemoparasitic. It's about this long, the kind of cancer it
Yeah.
is. So we looked it up online, and it said, "Well, once you get the diagnosis, if you make 5 years from that point, you're doing really well." And my brother's had diabetes since he was 12.
Mhm.
And I said to him, I said, 5 years doesn't sound that bad. I'll take 5 years. And he said, yeah, 5 years isn't bad at all. 5 years not bad because he was getting up there and he had diabetes for so long. Well,
Yeah.
I've made it more than 5 years
Yeah.
and I'm doing pretty darn good. My brother didn't. you know.
Oh.
But hopefully he enjoyed the last few years he had, and I think he did, as much as I've enjoyed the time I've had since that operation.
Mhm.
Because that's all you got. You don't know how
Yeah.
long it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Make the
I
most
didn't
of it.
mention this to you earlier, but when I had my near death experience, one of the biggest things I walked away from is knowing that when I got there, I was home.
There you go.
I had been there before. This is where I came from, which
Yeah.
really made my trip on Earth seem less dramatic. You
Yeah,
know?
and
You
you're
know?
going back.
Yeah, and, like, who knows what's gonna happen. Again, the idea that we know way less than we even could consider. Like, it's just amazing because it's
So the option is you can be miserable for the time you're here, or you can make the most of it. Do
yeah,
something with your life, help the people around you, enjoy yourself.
yeah. Yeah. You never know when it could happen, like your experience, one day you were, speaking
Yeah,
on a cruise ship and the next second you couldn't read a clock. It happens that quick
it
and
did to me. It did
you
to me.
didn't
I
do
mean,
anything
maybe people
wrong.
around me noticed symptoms, but,
Yeah.
that's I thought
You
it was
didn't do
perfectly
anything
fine.
wrong, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of times people are like, they get in these situations and they're like, "I didn't do anything wrong. Like, this isn't my fault. Why is this happening?" And they
Yeah,
kinda get caught there. I know I did for a little bit,
yeah.
like, and you get
Well, I
caught
kept
in it.
making excuses for myself. I thought, "Okay, so I put my clothes on backwards today. Big deal, doesn't matter," you know?
Right.
Or some of the things I was doing, I left every cupboard in the house open for some reason, left
Mhm,
the house on left the house and the garage door open, all these things. I
mhm.
kept making excuses for the stuff I was doing, so
Yeah,
I paid this guy 220 bucks for a baseball cap, this one. Yeah. But my wife was the one who insisted I go to the doctor.
really.
Yeah. And
It's nice what our loved ones will do for us, especially our wives. Because if not for my wife, I would not make half of my doctor's appointments
there you go.
or nor schedule them.
There
But
you go.
but,
Yeah, I mean, if you've got something like that, someone like that in your life, you're doubly blessed. I mean, you really are.
yeah,
Not everybody has that.
you're right. You're right. I get caught up sometimes. I don't mean to take anything for granted. I just, like, am running to the next thing, and sometimes you just kind of forget, like, all the blessings, like the ability to walk, the ability to talk, the ability to breathe on your own,
Yeah.
there's just so much, and I mean, it happens with not small things, but less severe things, like if you've ever broken a bone, like I broke my leg when I was in high school, and suddenly you realize, man, without 2 working legs, you ain't going nowhere, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
You
a
gotta get
whole different
really
world.
yeah, you gotta get used to hopping a
Yeah.
lot,
And a lot of
um,
people have to live in that world all the time.
forever, yeah, and it's what they
Yeah.
know, yeah, and yeah, yeah, so it's hard sometimes to remember not to be a brat, but sometimes I feel like that's maybe we're programmed that way a little bit. We take the thing we got, we're running to the next thing, and we
Yeah.
didn't take enough time to appreciate what a blessing it was to even get the opportunity to go to the next thing. Yeah,
That's
totally
it.
agree.
That's it.
And what would you say to the person who's stuck in their own shit creek right now, who's feeling maybe even hopeless?
Yeah. I'd say stop focusing on yourself. When things get that bad, it's the time to really focus on other people. You're
Okay.
part of a society here. You're part of an organism, maybe the human race, whatever it is. You
Yeah.
know, there are other people out there. You have an experience that could help them. Think about helping them for a while. Don't think about yourself for a while. I know you've got it bad because a lot of people have it worse than I've ever have even imagined having it. And they may have it absolutely horrible. But even those people have something they can teach all of us. In fact, especially those people have something they can teach all of us.
Yeah.
Start teaching
Yeah.
people and start helping other people. Yeah. I mean, if we all we do is focus on ourselves, we're focusing on a tiny speck. I mean, what are
Mhm.
we? We're going to be here for a few minutes on a tiny planet and out of eternity. You
Yeah.
know, there's more to focus on.
Yeah.
Focus on more.
I love it. There's much more to do. And it's amazing how helping other people helps you. There's
Yeah.
something to it, like a physical, emotional, there's something it does. I don't know what it is. I had to get into it. You have to do a lot of service work through AA, which I really didn't want to do. But
Yeah.
I realized when I did it, even there was a run, like a 5K run, and I was assigned to stand on a corner just so where runners knew where to go. And I was just cheering
Yeah.
for them as they walked by. It was one of the first things I did. And, getting into service work. And I thought it was so dumb signing up for it. But when I got done with it, I was like, that was actually pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And
And
all
fun too,
and
right?
yeah, and all I did was cheered for other people,
Yeah.
people who didn't know me, and I was like, "You got this." And it's almost like you start talking to them the way you wish someone was talking to you.
Yeah.
So, because it's like you give them that extra oomph. You're like, "You can do this. You got this. You're almost there," and it's like
Well,
it's
that's what
fun.
happens when you're helping other people because you're actually helping yourself. Because a
Yeah,
lot as a speaker, a self-appointed guru, I'd very often say something, and at the end, the person would come up to me and, said, "That was really important for me to hear right now." And
yeah,
I'd say the first thing I would usually think was, "Yeah, that was important for me to say right now and for me to hear."
yeah,
Because very often I'd gotten away from the thing I was telling other people to do, pontificating to other people.
right. That
And now I don't
happens.
do nearly as much speaking, but, it's still the same idea is, you've really got to, you're just part of it. You're not the whole thing. And if you make yourself the whole thing, you're distorting things, and that's going to create problems.
Yeah. Well said, sir. Well said. Well, with that, Barry, I just want to thank you for coming on. And I'm going to make sure we put any links that you would like any viewers to have. That would be to get in contact with you or get a hold of your book, so that
Great.
people will be able to check it out in the bio. And besides that, sir, thank you so much. And
Well,
until
thank
next
you for
time.
having me. Then go right to my site, which is www.barrymar.com, which nobody can spell, but BARRYMAHER.com, or they can just go to Amazon, the books, The Great Dick and the Dysfunctional Demon. Give it a
Perfect.
shot.
Perfect. I encourage everyone to go out there and get it. And without further ado, thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. It was fun.
If this episode resonated with you, make sure you like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it today. Barry's story is a reminder that even the smallest changes can signal something life-altering, but they can also lead to deeper meaning, gratitude, and purpose. Drop a comment below and let us know what part of this conversation hits you the most. And if you're navigating your own shit creek, you are not alone, and there's always a paddle forward. See you in the next episode.